had this interesting idea the other day about how flavors impact our health. And it occurred to me that flavors don't matter to the body the way that we think that they do. Flavors give our brain information about toxicity and safety. And then some processes happen in the body related to whatever we've put into our mouth. In the example of sugar, I know that when our mouth tastes sweet, a bunch of processes happen to prepare for the incoming sugar. And so there's storage that happens. So sugar converted to fat and a bunch of things. But I'm not going to pretend that I know all the different processes that happen when our mouth tastes, for example, bitter or sour or like, but I do know that a bunch of stuff happens. And I do know that although I haven't taken the time to figure out all the different things that our body will do in response to that, food companies have. Wellness Warriors, if you want to manage your weight, it's important to improve your health. On Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet, we're working on the mindset necessary to make sure that whatever you're doing today for your health, you're going to be able to do long into the future because that's what's going to help you to maintain a healthy weight. If this is something that you're working on, subscribe because I make new videos every week. Those candies, cookies, cakes, processed foods, fast foods that we have such a hard time not picking up when we're in the store or not stopping in the drive-through. The reason we have such a hard time is because companies have orchestrated it to be that way. And it's not only the ingredients in the food, it's the packaging of the food, it's the logos on the restaurants. Companies spend a lot of money to make sure that we want to eat the products that they create. The problem? We want to be healthy and we want to lose weight. So if what I want is to be healthy, one of the things that I'm going to have to do is retrain my palate to like healthy foods. And the question is, how do we accomplish that? It's important for us to understand what pushes us to want to eat these high carbohydrate foods, because some of these high carbohydrate foods don't actually taste sweet. For example, potatoes doesn't actually taste sweet. Pasta does not actually taste sweet. There are many things that we crave and chase that are high in carb, don't taste sweet. The reason we still chase them and the reason that we don't realize it's the carbs is because what's happening isn't happening on the level of our mouth. It's happening on the level of our brain. When we eat foods that are high in carbohydrate, there is a pleasure center in our brain that gets turned on and we react to that and it makes us feel good. And then, because we like that feeling, we chase those foods and we'll eat them over and over. And those high carbohydrate foods, well, I mean, it's potatoes, but it's also bread, it's rice. Basically, anything that's high in sugar, and sugar and carbohydrate, like those are two words for the same stuff. So high in sugar, candy, chocolate bar, cake, ice cream. High in carb, bread, pasta, rice. They're the same. So what our body wants is nutrients and fuel, because our body wants to build, repair, and obviously we need the energy to keep going forward. Your body is looking for you to be as healthy as possible. That's the goal of the body. Keep Violet healthy. However, our society has taught us to chase flavors. And I say it's our society because when we were a little kid, 0 to, let's say, 4, and I'm saying 4 because that's when I started to let my daughter eat junk food. And that's a flawed idea right there, but I'm just using 4 as the example. Any little kid who doesn't get to choose their food will eat whatever parents put in front of them. So from 0 to 4, if you only put meat in front of your kid will eat meat. If you only put rice in front of your kid will eat rice. The kid will eat what you give them. Why is that important for us to understand? Because when we do that, we're training that child's palate. So if I live in a home where we only had fish, my palate is trained on fish versus someone else's home who was having a lot of chicken, their palate's trained on chicken. Now, my daughter didn't get any sweets until the age of 4. Between the age of 4 and 6, she did not like them. She avoided them. When people gave them to her, she'd take a taste, walk away, and she didn't want it. Did she get used to it eventually? Of course. And this is where I come back to this idea that we've been trained to chase high carbohydrate foods. And the training is starting earlier and earlier. I didn't let my daughter have sweets under the age of 4. But I know a lot of people who give their babies ice cream. I know a lot of people who give their babies soda. I don't think it's healthy, but I've seen it over and over and over again. One of the things that I want everyone to consider is that the more money you have, the more likely you are to be eating based on taste rather than based on nutrient value. And the simple reality is, if I don't have a lot of money, my shopping tends to be more constricted, and therefore I don't buy as much fun food. More money I have, more chances I am to buy fun food. Now, I say fun food, I'm talking about cookies and junk food. Junk food. It doesn't change the fact that I'm still going to buy potatoes and rice and pasta because that's a carbohydrate that can go far when I'm cooking a meal. So I'm still involved in this carbohydrate problem, just in a different way. And for my body, doesn't matter. They're both going to that pleasure center and causing me to chase. I want us to consider something. Humans are built to survive. The only goal that my body has for me is to keep Violet alive. What we need to keep in mind is that our ancestors hunted and ate what they caught. And although they would have eaten whatever vegetation was in season, and so basically was ripe in the moment, they weren't keeping it and they weren't eating it out of season. So any vegetation that they would have eaten would have been a specific period of time. So, and maybe different vegetables and different fruits at different points in time, depending on when those vegetables would be ripe. However, they're not eating those things 12 months out of the year. But I think the thing that's much more interesting to me is whatever we caught and were eating, at some point, we were eating this stuff raw. At other points, we were eating it maybe cooked, but not necessarily with spices on it. The time it took for us to get to the place we are today, where we spice and cook everything perfectly every single time, that took so many years. Our body does not care about the taste of the food from that perspective. If it's not toxic, then all it wants is the energy and the protein to build us. We give so much attention to the taste of food to the point where we allow food companies to sell us things as food that are not healthy for us to eat. Because I know that there's not one wellness warrior that's going to tell me that they can see the value, the nutrient value of a chocolate bar. That we should be eating that on a regular basis. That we should be eating lollipops on a regular, but I see adults eating these things. I was an adult eating chocolate bars. The nutritional value of a chocolate bar versus a steak versus some chicken versus an egg, it's not there. One of the major issues we humans have is how good we are at surviving. And I'm calling it an issue in this particular case because we are able to take poor quality food and sustain ourselves for a really long time. It's not indefinite though. I can tell you from personal experience that the standard Caribbean diet that I was eating and the junk food that I was eating alongside that standard Caribbean diet led to me having joint issues, led to me having like back joint issues, like everywhere there was a joint on me was not doing well. And the only reason that I'm in the situation I'm in today is because when my hip began to hurt and I started to be in the position where I could not walk, my fear of medication kicked in and caused me to find a permanent solution to the problem. Had I not had a fear of medication, I probably would be taking something for my hip pain today, and I would still be 70, maybe I'd be 80 or 90 pounds overweight by this point. It is so important for us to understand that our body will survive until it cannot survive any longer, whatever that happens to look like. In my case, it was inflammation. In my case, it was rising weight, but that happened well. The inflammation started. I was in my early 20s when my inflammation issues began. Understand, I was 43 when I figured, 43, 47, something like that, when I finally figured out what was wrong and made changes. Wellness warriors, it is so important for you to understand that it's not because you're thin that you're healthy, because I was thin while my joints were going nuts. The only way that you can really be sure that you're eating healthy is to verify what foods are healthy for you to eat. So, kind of like how whenever we get an exotic pet, the first thing we do is check, what should this animal be eating? I did that for the lizard. I did that for the chinchilla. What should this animal be eating? What things, if I give it to them, would cause the animal to be in trouble? I wanted to make sure that my animal was going to be okay. For my dog, which is not an exotic pet, I still did a lot of research, and I figured out what was the healthiest product that I could buy for my dog to eat. So had the highest meat content because I wanted to make sure that my dog would be okay. At the end of the day, if I don't do the research, how do I know that I'm feeding my animal correctly? One of the things that I never did, and I would never have thought to do, was take my human scraps and give it to any of these animals. Why? Because human food is not healthy for other animals, because the other animals have their own diet that they should be following. If I understood that, like this is going back 10 years, why do we not verify the things that we're eating? It's because we have food companies and the government telling us that here, this is healthy, eat it, and we don't double check. Very often when we're buying food for ourselves, we end up basing our purchases on price and taste. Wellness warriors, what I'm trying to help you to see today is that those are the worst reasons to decide on what you're purchasing. What I want you to do is buy the food that's going to allow you to build the body to live the life you want to live. Hopefully you want a body that's strong, flexible, and internally healthy. And the only way that I can make sure that I do that is by buying food that creates a strong, flexible, internally healthy body. It is extremely important for you to prioritize health over taste. If you don't do that, you're going to go down that road of buying what tastes good and eating that food and building a poor quality you, because the food you eat is the protein that's going to build the body that you're trying to build. And if all of my protein, or the majority of my protein, is coming from poor quality sources, then that's the body I'm going to build. There are some videos on the screen right here that are going to help you to improve your health. Wellness warriors, I'm always so happy that you come back. Everybody who's new, subscribe, ring the bell, because I make new videos to help you to change your mindset and live that healthy life every week. Can't wait to talk to you all again next week.